The Red Raiders are looking to make it 2 in a row on the road, this time as they head out west to Provo, Utah. It'll be no easy task, though, against Slovis and the Cougars out in the mountains. Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's RC Maxfield here for the Back to 12 podcast. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button to join the most interactive Texas Tech community here on YouTube. About to hit 8,000 subs. Just kidding. 9,000 subs here on the channel. Absolutely wild growth this year and support from Red Raider Nation. We truly appreciate each and every one of you. And real quick, a programming note before we go into this week's matchup against BYU. I'm going on my honeymoon this week, going to Italy. So there will only be 2 videos on the channel this week. This here game preview, and then we will preview the Texas Tech men's basketball roster and team and give a season preview for everybody looking forward to Red Raider basketball. So that's just kind of a, hey, RC, why are there only 2 videos on the channel this week? What are you doing? You're slacking. Well, with good reason, okay? I'm in Italy with the missus. Let us enjoy our time. Thank you in advance on that front. Also, let me know down in the comments below who you got in this one. Texas Tech heading out west to Provo, face off against the Cougars. So you got Texas Tech or BYU. Let me know your score prediction down below. All right, let's set the scene real quick in this one. They will head out with the Red Raiders to LaVell Edwards Stadium in Provo, Utah. The first trip the Red Raiders will ever take out to Provo. Kickoff is scheduled for 6 p.m. Central Time. You can watch it on FS1 and also listen to it on the Texas Tech radio networks as well. As I mentioned, this is the first time in program history Texas Tech will play BYU in Provo. However, it is not the first time that they will play BYU in general. The only other meeting happened in 1940. If you were alive, please let me know. That would be cool. Anyway, Texas Tech did play BYU out in Lubbock in 1940. The score was 21-20, and the Red Raiders won it. Now, let's jump into some things you need to know going into this one because, again, there's a lot of injuries, and then we'll discuss that here in just a second pertaining to the starting quarterback for the Red Raiders. But let's knock this out first. BYU ranks last in the Big 12 in rushing yards per game. Maybe a big deal, or at least significant, considering what the Texas Tech defense looked like against Kansas State and Avery Johnson last week. Can the Red Raider defense respond after their performance against the Wildcats? One that I just brought up. We shall see. On defense, they're getting 2 guys back that will be a big impact for that defense. It'll be Bryce Ramirez at the linebacker position and Braylon Lux in the secondary. Joey McGuire announced during his weekly press conference leading up to the BYU game that those 2 would be back. Now, CJ Baskerville, Mason Tharp, and the other name that you see right there, Baron Morton, are going to be game time decisions. Joey McGuire clarified on the Baron Morton front, it was a pain tolerance thing. He got a shot in the back in terms of that last play that he was in the game and his back tightened up. Also, his shoulder, right? He has that AC joint sprain, So you have to remember that as well. Now, on the Jacob Rodriguez front, he's been out since the Wyoming game up in Laramie. It sounds like, according to Joey McGuire, that he will be back for the TCU game. Remember, Texas Tech has a bye next weekend, so this is the last game that they will play for about a 10-day period, and then they're going to discuss potentially bringing Jacob Rodriguez back for 3 of the last 4 games and maybe get a red shirt out of him because if they do make a bye, there is a waiver for that where he can play in the 5th game in the bowl game. So something to look out for there. Now, when it comes down to players to watch in this one, obviously we're going to be looking at the quarterback position for the Red Raiders. Simple and plain, right? Will Baron Morton play in this game? Again, a true game time decision according to Joey McGuire. He's already been in the building, according to the HC, talking about, going in, getting some therapy on his shoulder and everything like that, right? So can he actually throw the ball down the field? That'll be the big question. If it isn't Baron Morton, it'll be Jake Strong, the true freshman quarterback, getting his first career collegiate start out in Provo. That's going to be a little difficult, right? When it comes to players to watch for the Texas Tech offense, it's got to be Taj Brooks. If you watched the last video here on the channel, you see me rant for about 10 minutes about how the hell do you not give this guy the ball more? Again, 5.6 yards per carry in the second half for Taj Brooks on 8 carries. He only touched the ball 8 times. Jake Strong, in his first action in college, threw it 28. Listen, don't give me that crap on the loaded box front. There was multitude of plays that they could have ran the football, right? Now, granted, there were some loaded boxes. I'm not saying you give Taj Brooks the ball every time, but you make it easier for the true freshman quarterback in terms of not having to do as much and getting your elite playmaker involved in Taj Brooks in creative ways, whether that's screens, whether that's Texas routes. There's so many ways to go about this. Wide receivers out in the flats, use him as a wide receiver in that regard. There's so many ways to get Taj Brooks involved. You have to do it against BYU, regardless of who the quarterback is, whether it's Baron Morton, who sounds like he's going to play banged up if he does play, right? Or if it is the true freshman quarterback, Jake Strong. As for the other players to watch for Texas Tech in this one, it's going to be the Texas Tech secondary. Simple and plain in this one, right? Kendon Slovis can absolutely ball out, and he should. He's damn near 30. Joking. It's like 24. Anyway, joking on the age front. I can't make that joke. Kendon Slovis loves to throw the football, right? He's 6th in the Big 12 in terms of passing yards, total passing yards, right? And a guy that at BYU really loves to get Chase Roberts involved. They love to chuck it around the yard, do the Cougars, right? So you're going to have to, if you're the Texas Tech secondary, really be on your A game. It helps that you get a guy like Braylon Lux back. Now you're cooking a little with some grease here, right? If you're the corners, right? You got Dunlap, Rashad Williams. You've got Braylon Lux back. Maybe you have C.J. Baskerville back. If you don't, you got Brendan Jordan back there that's played well as a true freshman for Texas Tech. Tyler Owens and obviously Rabbit as well with some other depth pieces back there in the Texas Tech secondary. So you feel good about that, right? And we'll talk about them here in just a little bit more about what you can expect from them, right? But players to know for BYU, I've already mentioned it, Kendon Slovis. He's 6th in the Big 12 in passing, just under 1,400 yards passing. He's a veteran quarterback that doesn't really make mistakes, a little bit more mobile than people give him credit for. I'm not saying, he's Vince Young or anything like that, right? He's not going to be running all over the yard, but he can move a little bit in the pocket, all right? Also, he's experienced as hell. This is his 5th year starting in college football. Ton of experience for the Cougars quarterback. I mentioned Chase Roberts already. He's the leading receiver for them with 421 yards receiving on the year. On the opposite side of the football for the Cougars, the two names to know are Max Tooley, who he leads the team in tackles with 44, and then Jacob Robertson, right? He has 3 INTs, does Robinson, on the year. That leads the Cougars on that side of the football. They've got a couple other guys with 2, but they are experienced in that secondary, are the Cougars. But it really comes down to this for me. When we're talking about this matchup, and the must-watch matchup of this game is the Texas Tech secondary against the BYU passing game, right? BYU is dead last, not even close to 600 yards. They're under 500 yards rushing on the year. Taj Brooks by himself has more rushing yards than the entire BYU team, right? So they're going to throw the ball around, are the Cougars, right? And so when you look at this for me, right, and you can see my thoughts there at the bottom, BYU simply doesn't run the ball at all. Can the Texas Tech secondary force Slovis into mistakes and create turnovers while also not allowing the big plays, right? I've said it at nauseum this year that I think when you look at the matchup for Texas Tech in terms of, hey, the roster and how they match up against teams in the Big 12, you could argue with the depth they have in the secondary that that's their best unit, right? And so I think that this is going to be a tell-it-all and prove-it-all kind of game for this Texas Tech secondary, one that is vastly experienced against a vastly experienced quarterback and some wide receivers that have experience too. So I think that this is the must-watch matchup for me. Now, as for the odds, heading out west to Provo, the Red Raiders are 4.5-point favorites with a total over-under set at 51.5. You see my prediction right there. I have Texas Tech winning this one 31-25. And the reason being is this. I think Texas Tech is a better team than BYU. It's that simple, and they match up really well against them, right? BYU doesn't run. The Texas Tech defense, they struggled to stop the run last week against Kansas State, right? The Texas Tech secondary, sure, they've given up some big plays this year, but overall, they've been pretty damn good considering there's been like little to no pass rush for the Red Raiders on the defensive side. I'm very excited to see this matchup of Slovis against that Texas Tech secondary. Again, that is the must-watch matchup of the week in this matchup for the Red Raiders, right? And I think Texas Tech does end up winning this one by the score of 31-25. All right, one more time. Let me know your score prediction for Texas Tech at BYU. Let me know down on the pinned comment down below. One more time, just a programming announcement. I will be on my honeymoon this week and next week, so you may not get a lot of content here on the channel for the next few days, probably about the next 10. Let's just call it 10, right? As we are over in Italy celebrating our honeymoon. So again, only 2 videos this week on the channel, this here game preview. And then later in the week, there will be a Texas Tech men's basketball season preview. Exciting stuff for the Red Raiders in year number 1 of Grant McCaskill's. But before you head out of here, let me know your score prediction down on the pinned comment below. And be sure to like the video and hit that subscribe button to join the fastest growing Texas Tech community here on YouTube and the most engaging one as well here on the Back to 12 podcast channel.